I love being a Chinese medicine practitioner. It's my passion. Not just because I'm interested in theory and application, but because I love to help. But there's a great irony in my practice, and I don't think there's any different to anyone else out there in the Chinese medicine marketplace. And that is when I left university, excited and skilled up, I was terrified at the prospect of having no patients. I was terrified that my business would not work and I'd be looking for another job in another industry, probably packing shelves at Coles, because quite frankly that's what everyone was telling me was most likely. Plus I was in my late 30s and had a young family. No pressure. What I did have, however, which was perhaps different to many of my student colleagues, was a plan and a belief that Chinese medicine could be a positive and profitable career. But I have to tell you, there were many who said I was wasting my time. I wouldn't get enough patients, people would not be prepared to pay for the services that I was offering, and that the medical establishment was so far against us that it had the potential to bring down my business. And this is all before I had even graduated. I stuck to my guns, and in fact, what I did went against what most people told me to do. I cobbled together the little money I had. I borrowed a few $1,000s from my parents, and with the words of my wife ringing in my head, "You have to make this work in 1 year," I set to the task of opening a clinic on my own. Now, there were benchmarks that I set for myself. 40 patients a week by the end of my first 12 months and $100,000 in gross turnover. Now, can't be done is what I was told, but what actually happened was that within the 12 months I was seeing 35 patients a week and took just over $90,000 in that first year. So I didn't quite reach my goals, but I was super close and I'd set the bar really high for myself. I've always considered myself a student of Michael Gerber. Now, although I admit that I've never met him, he's the author of The E-Myth. And I set about growing my business in a way that allowed me to work on it rather than just in it. Now, I suggest that if you've not heard of these terms, you go and read The E-Myth right now. And that is where the irony is. For all the fear of not being able to build a business, I was starting to become trapped by my own success. Now, the ideas were right. I moved into a larger premises, which meant greater overheads, but more capacity. I started to dabble with renting rooms, but my renters were unreliable and the rent they paid barely covered the space, let alone make me any money. Now I had a string of receptionists and I even started to employ practitioners on a percentage and bonus basis. Plus, I was seeing up to 60 patients a week myself, doing all the marketing, which I love, managing my staff and trying to keep on top of all the paperwork and compliance issues. Now, I did this for years and it was fun for a while, but pretty quickly I realised that I was trapped. The things that I'd been most worried about were now starting to hedge me in. And from the outside it looked like I was thriving. I was always super busy, heaps of patients, great reputation in the community and plenty of money coming in. But what people didn't see was that most of that money was going out to pay rent, insurance, tax, workers' compensation, wages, and there was not a huge amount left for me. And I was doing pretty much all of the work. Not only that, but I had no time for my family. We had 3 small kids by now, no time for holidays, and I was getting very close to burnt out very quickly. And this is for someone who'd only graduated 4 or 5 years earlier. It was all too soon to be burnt out. And I meet many practitioners just like me, working hard, struggling to take holidays, struggling to gain the work-life balance that we all preach to our patients about. Now, I knew something had to change, and it did. In fact, I started trying to take some time off. 4 years ago, I took my family to New York City for 3 whole weeks. It was the first time I'd ever been away from the clinic for more than a few days, and to be honest, it really freaked me out. But the clinic survived, and it gave me some faith. Now, the following year, I took my family to Bali for a whole month. Now, it was fantastic. We all fell in love with Bali. That's another story. But something else happened on that particular trip. You see, I was in the gym one morning. I love working out. And my favourite gym in Ubud, which is where we were living, is called Massive Gym. Now, let me paint a picture of it for you. Dirty, run down, homemade equipment, dark, so hot and humid, you'd often be left sweating puddles. But I loved it. Why? Because it was where the locals trained. And the whole point of our time in Bali was to integrate and get to know the local culture. But one day, there was another foreigner in the gym. Now, it doesn't happen very often, so he and I connected quite quickly. You know that word serendipity, where things just happen and click? Well, this was one of those serendipitous moments. You see, it turns out that that other foreigner in the gym would turn out not just to be my friend, but my mentor and my business coach. And it's this relationship that has allowed me to completely transform my business and my life. And in some ways, the changes we made were tweaks like pricing and cancellation policies. Things that I'd been really too afraid to implement, even though I knew that I needed to. And these changes alone made a huge difference to the income of the clinic. Now, when we did an audit on money lost due to late cancellations, you know, those really annoying ones that cancel on the day of the appointment, I was horrified to find that it was costing the clinic $75,000 a year in lost revenue. Now, this change alone made a big difference, a big impact on the bottom line. But there were much bigger structural and even branding changes that helped me to completely revolutionise my clinic and my life. Now, I remember very clearly one of the first things that he asked me, and I'll give you his name in a minute, but he said, "Alex, before we do anything else, I need to know, what are your core values? What are the things that drive you to do what you do?" Actually, I found this question really confronting, but I realised after a lot of thought that there were several things missing in my life. One, income. Even with a successful business, I was still worried about money, and I hate that. Secondly, time. I never seemed to have enough time to do anything that I wanted to do, including keep myself healthy. And I put on a good 20 kilos in those 2 to 3 years. 3, family. I didn't have time for myself. I certainly didn't have much time for my family. They were missing out big time. And I really wanted to be the sort of dad that was there to be part of and to see my kids grow up. And fourthly, my relationship. My wife certainly bore the brunt of my effort in the business. And as Michael Gerber had so often pointed out, what's the point of having your own business if you don't have time for enjoying your life? And that is how I answered my coach's question. My core value, the thing that was central to me, was freedom, and I had almost none. Now fast forward 12 months, that's all. Things have turned around completely. Now, the business is far from perfect, but things are much, much better. I've increased my turnover by more than 60%, while getting better results for my patients and developing my team in a way that gives them real career development opportunities. I now have the freedom to work on other projects that are important to me, like publishing my digital magazine for our Chinese medicine profession. I enjoy travelling, and I spent the first half of this year living in Bali with my family. What a great opportunity for my kids to experience school in another country, different culture, and their development has been a really important part of these changes that I've made in my business. Now, instead of seeing upward of 60 patients a week myself, I spend only 1 week each month in the clinic. And I have for the first time in my life found the freedom that is so core to who I am. I've truly become the CEO and the master of my own destiny and my company, in a business sense, in a community sense, a family sense, and in a personal development sense. And that is what is most important to me, and why I'm so excited to be able to share my story with you, because I understand and I know exactly where you are in your business. Now, whether you're starting out and dreaming of success, whether you've been like I have, trapped by your own successes, imagine if I could show you a way to make massive change to your life. I mean real change that means way better outcomes for your patients, a clinic and a business that you can be proud of and serves you, in a way that allows you to see and attain your highest core values, and a model that gives you the freedom to make it all happen. Well, I have that model, and I've implemented. In fact, I've implemented every aspect of it, and combined with my clinical know-how, have developed a system with my coach that you can follow too. Actually, I'm going to prescribe it to you and your clinic so that there is no way that you can fail. So if you're tired and at risk of burnt out and feel like there's more to life than seeing patients day in and day out, or you're struggling to get and keep enough patients in your clinic to remain or even become profitable, or if you're scared, and this is a big one for all practitioners, me included, terrified of money and what it means to be profitable, then I do have the answers for you. Now, I'm 100% confident that my model will work for all clinics, regardless of demographic, location, practitioner, but this is not for everyone. Because the fundamental characteristic of my own success is not just determination, grit and belief, you absolutely need those things, but it's the ability to implement that will set you apart. You see, I'm a doer, not a watcher, not just a reader. I have a voracious appetite for knowledge, which is only surpassed by my ability to implement. So if you're ready to change your life in a truly meaningful way, then you'll love what I have to share. Now, the other thing that I haven't mentioned yet is the Chinese medicine profession. I entered the Chinese medicine profession after 10 solid years of soul searching. Now, I was known to change careers, jobs, locations at least a couple of times a year, but what people didn't realise was I was actively looking for the one true calling that would provide me with the mental and spiritual nourishment for my life into the future. Now, even through those times of change, there were constants. Music was one. I've been a guitarist since I could remember and invented myself as a singer-songwriter. I've toured locally and internationally, recorded albums, had a lot of fun, didn't make much money, even got through to the first live TV auditions on X Factor a few years ago. Now, you may also not know, my first degree was in visual arts. Now, this time I developed my love of learning and building and creating and the ability to think laterally and creatively. And as a debater at school, I further honed my speaking and presenting skills and abilities. And I was on exchange in America, and I remember very clearly my lecturer saying, tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. And even today, I use that basic format for all of my presentations. The other constant in my life has been my involvement in the martial arts. I started my karate training in my teens, and I've kept going. I remember wondering way back then if I would ever reach my black belt. I trained hard and I trained to become an instructor, and that was more than 20 years ago. I've been a 6th Dan black belt for the last 8 years, and I've run several successful martial arts schools. It was actually my love of the martial arts that finally brought me to Chinese medicine after all those years of search. It's funny to me looking back now because all of those things that have remained as constants in my life have been the most influential in my development. Discipline, determination, never give up, remain open-minded, develop a sense of creativity, foster incredible communication skills, and tie it all together with a belief that with implementation comes success. And this is who I am and the experience that I can bring to you. And I charge you with this. If you're like me, passionate about our profession, if you like me want to build a better life for yourself and your family and to define better patient outcomes, then you must be a leader in your chosen profession. Anything less and you're just not contributing to development of Chinese medicine, and this is the final part in the puzzle. You see, by being successful in practice, by helping other practitioners to develop their career opportunities, by improving patient outcomes, by being seen in the marketplace, by publishing, writing, speaking and developing a profile, you're directly contributing to the growth and development and the strengthening of the Chinese medicine fabric, of this wonderful form of healing. But you see, if you remain stuck in your home-based clinic, struggling for patient numbers, you can have little impact on the profession. If you are trapped by your own success, too busy with patients to look outside of your practice, then you can have little impact on the development of the profession. And this is why it's a win-win. The better you practice, the better your patient outcomes, the more practitioners you employ, the more you get involved in the professional community, the more balance you bring not only to your own life and family and finances, but the greater impact you'll be able to have and the greater ability of Chinese medicine to grow exponentially, in large part because of you and your practice. Think about it. It's pretty exciting. If you're interested in my story and passionate about building the sort of practice that is great for your patients, great for you, and great for your loved ones, and contributes directly to the growth of Chinese medicine as a profession, then come and hear me speak. My mentor, Adam Gibson, and I have teamed up to teach you how you can achieve these kinds of successes in your own practice. Look, I really look forward to meeting you soon and to hearing your story.